Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everything in between.
I like how you did that.
Our captain, Charles Kelso, is on shore leave this week, so I am acting Captain Alan Seiler, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Chief Science Officer Keith Johnson.
State your purpose.
And Chief Medical Officer Veronica Dashiell.
Hi. Oh, I have a cat.
Oh, it's that killer cat.
No, this is the other kitten.
Good.
He's purring really loud.
So this week, this is a very special show because as we were laying out our calendar of upcoming shows, we had something else planned this week. And then I just sort of noticed, wait a minute, this week is July 9th, 7/9. How can we not do a show about 7 of 9? So we are going to be doing a show all about 7 of 9. And to help us do that, we have a very special guest with us, a first timer on our show. She's a regular listener, but first time being on the show with us. This is Holly Jordan.
Fun will now commence.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Welcome, Holly.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
See, obviously she's a regular listener because she knows the routine. She knows the pattern. Good job. So, Holly, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started on your Trek journey.
Sure. So, as I said, Holly Jordan. I am a former professor of religion and politics and do a lot with cultural theory and fandom in my work. And my Star Trek journey, I don't remember a time in my life when Star Trek wasn't on my TV. My father was watching it on the original run. If there were reruns on the TV, it was on. My brother and I had the old VHSs where we would tape it off the TV. So it's a part of my DNA at this point. And that's why I do long form essays online about Star Trek and religion, Star Trek and politics, and lots of other fandoms as well.
Awesome.
Well, let me just say that I have been itching for us to do a show about religion and Star Trek. So consider yourself pre-invited to be a guest on that show whenever we get around to doing it.
That will be fun because Charles has interesting views about it. And my dad was a preacher, so I was absolutely raised in the church. And Holly, I love the fact that you were bringing religion into Star Trek. I think one of the most fascinating things about sci-fi is concepts of religion and spirituality, and wrong show, but what Deep Space Nine did with it. It's just a fascinating topic.
Absolutely. And for being a very humanistic show about a science-based premise, there's a surprising bit of religion and personal belief throughout all the shows. And I think it's a really, really cool topic to get into. But that is not our topic for tonight. First of all, let me just say that our buddy Jared Cooper, who was on our show a few weeks back, says, I'm about to be blasphemous. I prefer 7 of 9 on Picard. I think there's no commas. So I think that's a 1,000,000% more than Voyager.
100,000.
Is it?
Yeah.
Only 100,000? I think there's too many zeros for that, but okay. And then Mark Webb says, hello, everyone, and says, yay, Holly.
Hey, Mark.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay. So this week, as I said earlier, we're going to be talking all about everyone's favorite ex-Borg, 7 of 9, who made her debut at the beginning of season 4 of Voyager, carried on throughout the rest of Voyager, and then we picked up her story again in Star Trek Picard. So this is going to be a very interesting discussion because we have a character here who we have seen in 2 very, very different, distinct time periods in her life. Right. So we're going to start with Voyager. And before we really can get into 7 of 9, we have to kind of deal with Kes. Because Kes was an established character. She was there for the first 3 seasons, and then she was kind of unceremoniously booted out the airlock. And I personally, I know I'm in the minority here, but I personally loved Kes.
So did I.
And I was very, very disappointed to see her go. So first of all, I want y'all to talk about how you felt about Kes's leaving and how did you react to it at the time? And Holly, you started because you are our guest.
Oh, thanks. So the first time I really watched Seven in anything was Picard, actually.
Really?
I had caught bits and pieces of Voyager throughout the years. We had Year of Hell taped off the TV, but like my Voyager was very limited. But I knew her. I loved her. I thought she was a cool character. So when I then went back and watched Voyager for the first time, I kind of was just waiting for her to show up. So the first run through, I don't think I gave Kes as much attention as I should have because I was just waiting for Seven. Second time through, though, Kes is such a wonderful character, and towards the end, when they were starting to really explore her powers and her coming into kind of her psychic abilities, I was sad that we didn't get to finish that story, or at least get her a little bit farther down that path. Because Kes was a really fun part of the crew, and we don't have a lot of examples of main casts that are, other than like, I guess, Gary Mitchell, that have these like really intense psychic powers. So that's the part I missed.
Right. Plus, I just think that there's a lot of times that Star Trek does a really, really interesting character concept and then doesn't really do anything with it. And Ocampans have a 9-year lifespan, and that is so interesting. If we had her for the full 7 seasons, that would have been almost the entirety of her life, and we could have seen her go through all of these life changes, and we never got any of that, and that's really disappointing.
Right. What did you think about Veronica Kes leaving? What Alan said.
I didn't care either way because I watched it. I mean, I watched it in order, but I didn't watch it when it aired. So I probably watched it over the course of a month or two. So there wasn't a whole lot of attachment. And the whole Neelix relationship thing was weird throughout the entire thing. It probably did not help that I was watching it with Chuck. So I probably absorbed several of his opinions.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But I had no like, oh, I wish she was still here over her.
I think briefly because
I didn't dislike her. I liked the characters, but I didn't like her relationship with Neelix. It was the whole thing was weird, regardless of the age gap or anything. It felt weird.
I think
like Worf and Deanna.
Yeah, I know we know Jennifer Lee had her problems in life. She has some mental health issues. That was one of the things. But Alan, what you were saying about loving her, I think Kes to me is a small example of one of the issues I had with 7 and 9, not the actress, which is I always ask the question: Is Jerry Ryan so far above the others in acting ability, or did they just give her more material and time to develop a character? Because I agree with you, Kes could have been so much better if they had written for her better.
Yes.
And that's one of my problems.
And there were some really good Kes episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
and my favorite one is Before and After, which I think is absolute genius. That's the one where you see her life lived in reverse.
That's my favorite one too.
It's so good.
So good. Yeah. So I was sad to see her go. And I was suspicious, honestly, of Jerry Ryan because there's no other way to say, look, I'm a healthy man and all that kind of stuff. But the cat suit was kind of obvious. And so I was like, oh, good God, folks, seriously.
I know. And that's another Trek trope in the 90s-ish, where it's like we have to sex up the show, because we saw that on Enterprise also. Let me get a couple of comments here. Jared reminds us that Kes was fired because Garrett Wang was voted sexiest sci-fi man in some magazine. Otherwise, it would have been Garrett who was out the door, which is absolutely right. Yeah. Somebody they could have just added another character.
I agree.
And I kind of feel like, I don't know, it's Star Trek. So it's like, we can only have so many women on the show. So if we're going to add one, we got to get rid of one. So I feel like, and of course, as you say, Jennifer did have some issues of her own.
Right.
And she did come back for one more episode after she left the following season, where she's coming back as like this angry, ragey, raw. And I hated that so much. I was like, why are you ruining my character?
Right.
Because I loved Kes. Anyway, he also says, when you rewatch Voyager, it would have made so much more sense for 7 to have been on the bridge at an ops station instead of in astrometrics. Okay.
Yeah, I think, Jared, I agree with the point, but I think the reason they did that is they always wanted to make her somewhat different from the crew. And I know that they talked about that. They didn't want to put her on the bridge where she 100% had to take orders every single day from Janeway like that. That's why they created astrometrics for her.
Yeah. She got her own set.
Yeah.
And Michael Scott says, "Hey everyone, and welcome Holly."
What's up,
Thanks,
Michael?
Michael.
Okay, so now that we've dealt with Kess, how did you feel about the addition of Seven? And Keith, I've got a question just for you because I know what you're going to say because you've said it before. Did she overshadow the rest of the cast?
Yes, and I say that to this day. I love Jerry Ryan. I've seen her in everything from that to the show with Leverage and all kinds of shows in between. She's a really, really good actress, but I cannot say that she's natively a better actor than Tim Russ or Robert Duncan McNeil or Roxanne Dawson. They wrote for her. They wrote for Janeway. They wrote for Mulgrew. They wrote for Picardo. And I do think she sucked the air out of the show. But she's a good actress. But I do think the others suffer because of that. Nothing against Jerry Ryan. She's phenomenal. She can do humor. She can do drama. She can do pathos. She can be vulnerable. She can be strong. She can be irritating. She can be endearing. But the others didn't get the chance once she showed up. That's my only slight issue with 7 and 9.
She can even do Robert Picardo impressions.
Yes, absolutely. I love her as a character, but I lament what happened to the other characters because of that.
Well, except for one, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But Holly, get your response to.
I don't think she overshadowed the cast. And if you guys can hear my dog, I apologize.
That's okay.
Hi, puppy.
But I think part of it is that most Star Trek shows kind of have like a core 3. You know, you've got Bones, Spock, and Kirk, and Voyager kind of had a nebulous core 3 at times. Like it was always like Chakotay and Janeway, and often the Doctor. And I think it really disrupted the format a little bit to bring in 7 and kind of almost make her part of the core, I guess, core 4 at that point. Mm-hmm. So it necessarily was going to take some time away from a lot of the characters, but I still feel like every season we got, you know, our Harry episode, our, you know, Tom episode. And so I think they still made a point to pass out some episodes, but like there was a lot of 7 time, but I don't think it was to the detriment of the other actors.
And, you know, you make a good point that every season we still got a Harry episode and we still got a whatever. Let's be honest. Let's be totally fair about this. It's not like Garrett Wong was going to get more than one feature episode per season, whether she came on the show or not.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's just that's the status, you know. You have your captain, your first officer, your chief medical officer, blah, blah, blah. He's, you know, an ensign. He's not going to be the featured character as often. Even though there were some great Harry episodes.
Yeah.
You know?
I think for me, where 7 started somewhat getting on my nerves, again, not the actress, but how the characters used, is when there were episodes where she was a better fighter than Tuvok, who's a 100-year-old Vulcan who was a martial arts instructor at the academy, when she was smarter than this person and the magic nanites. After a while, I kind of felt like y'all are really doing stuff to keep her, like that horrible episode with Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
And even with the Herosian, there were so many times I'm like, Tuvok is a Vulcan, 100 years old, and a martial arts master. And he would be overshadowed by 7 because she was better than him. Okay, she's a Borg, blah, blah, blah. Little stuff like that. But again, this is nothing against Jerry Ryan. I just felt the writers went a little bit. It probably didn't help that she and Brendan Braga started dating at one point during the show. I think he really advocated for her. But I still love her as a character. She's a great actress.
What do you think, Veronica?
I like her. She was good, and you could see her character change throughout Voyager, and especially in Picard. So she's clearly got the skills to actually act and not just be a character that's the same character everywhere.
Yeah. Right. Well, you know, since we're talking about 7 being a new addition at the beginning of season 4, let's kind of talk about the parallel there with Worf. Because Worf was also a season 4 addition on DS9. The difference is Worf was a 7-year established character coming into a show like, I don't know, does DS9 need saving? Do they need the star Klingon to come rushing in and save it? You know, here was the same situation. We put a hot lady in a cat suit.
Yeah.
And, for ratings, let's be honest, that's basically what it is. Sure. But the interesting thing to me is that I thought, this is such a cheap ploy. It's such a cheap tactic to put this lady in this really, really tight cat suit and blah, blah, but then you find out that she's actually a really well-written character, and it's a really great character premise and a strong actress. So anyway, talk about maybe that season 4 cast edition and how it changed those two shows.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point, Alan, because I know I listened to the Delta Flyers podcast, and they have, and Armin Shimmerman has said many, many, many times how the cast resented Michael Dorn coming on to their show. Love Michael Dorn, he considers him a personal friend, but they were kind of like, why is he here? Why do we don't need him? Let us have our own show. I know a couple of people. Robert Beltran has talked about how, again, nothing against Jerry Ryan. He felt like she kind of came in on the show. And of course, there's the whole famous Kate Mulgrew relationship with Jerry Ryan.
Right.
I think in any case like that, and Alan's a musician, you know, it's like a band where all of a sudden the band goes from a generic name to so-and-so and the band.
Right.
That's how they felt on Voyager. I know the actors have all said this at times I've listened to them. Yeah, they had a problem with it, but they always try to say it's not Jerry Ryan who did this. And so they had to struggle really hard not to make it personal. Kate Mulgrew, by her own admission, failed in not letting her resentment come out, because as a woman in the first lead of a Star Trek show, she had so much more she felt was like being impersonated by Jerry Ryan coming on than the others.
Right. This new edition comes in and gets all the attention.
Right. Yeah. And that was pretty nasty. Kate herself, I know we've all heard the stuff she said. I mean, she was pretty hard on Jerry Ryan for quite a while. They talk about when she didn't want to have breaks. She would get pissed off if they wanted to take a break. And Jerry Ryan passed out many times filming that show in that original cat suit. And there were times where Jerry Ryan said she was reduced to tears because she was in pain. And Kate Mulgrew was being kind of mean, like, you're a professional, keep going. Probably could have been handled better.
Well, we'll find out. I think we're going to find out some stuff when that Voyager documentary finally ever comes out.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I'd forgotten about that.
I know, because it's been so darn long since they basically have finished everything. And anyway, I'm just ready for it to come out. Anyway, so do y'all have anything to add about the Worf/Seven parallel?
I think in both cases, there was a lot of trepidation and doubt about whether it was going to work. And in both cases, they made it work. And they were good additions to their show. Worf added something to the show, and so did 7 and 9. They did add something to the show. And that's because they all came on as gimmicks. Like you said, Michael Dorn was well known, a gimmick, Jerry Ryan, catsuit gimmick. But fortunately, the actors could act, and they had something, and they wrote for them. So it worked out better than it might have been, should have.
I think the difference is there was a significant shift in focus when 7 of 9 came on, and there wasn't that same significant shift of focus. Yes, there was an additional character to focus on, but I didn't feel like it took away from any of the main cast or even any of the B, C, D, G, Z cast that DS9 had. It supplemented it more than 7 of 9, where she kind of took everything over. Not everything, but
Yeah.
I think what both versions did really well was make sure that both characters felt like fish out of water when they joined the cast. Because Worf goes through a process of understanding this is not the flagship, this is not the Enterprise, rules are different, Odo's in charge, not you. And it takes him a while to figure out who he is in that group. And the same with 7. 7 doesn't want to be a part of the group. And we have that wonderful, how do you get somebody that doesn't understand the group think and the group dynamic, getting them into a position where they are a wonderful, exceptional member of that group?
Right.
Yeah. I think so.
Let's see. Mark says that the digital version of the Voyager documentary has been released, which I was not aware of, and I want to see it. And Jared says that the Voyager doc was screened on the Star Trek cruise.
Nice.
So, once again, yet another thing to make us jealous for having not been on the cruise. He also says, wasn't Michael Dorn's DS9 edition a contract fulfillment thing, kind of like Freema Agyeman in season 4 of Doctor Who and season 2 of Torchwood? Not that I've ever heard.
Yeah, I hadn't
It's
heard that either.
possible, but I mean, he did 4 full seasons of DS9, and I mean, I don't know how that was a contract fulfillment.
And he
but
had a full year off between TNG and starting
yeah,
DS9 as well, I believe.
yeah. And I know there were contract points. Like he said, if I come back to this show, I do not want to be in the makeup chair for every episode. So they had to balance away. Like they filmed 1 week this episode and then his bits for the next episode at the same time. So he had the next episode off, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. So there was contract stuff going on. But anyway, our friend Bill says, sorry, I'm late. Had to deal with one bureaucracy picking on another state agency, forcing us to fill out another W-9. That sounds incredibly crazy, and I'm glad that I don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. But welcome to the show, Bill. Glad to have you. Okay. So I want to, well, first I want to know, since we kind of mentioned the character arc that we saw over the rest of Voyager, how do you think that the show dealt with her struggle like this? I think this is one of those times where they actually come up with a good character concept and really see it through and really spend time working on it. And it's not like, you know, going back to Worf, that one episode on TNG where he like breaks his back and the next episode he's up walking around and doing whatever. This is one where they actually played out her storyline over 4 seasons, and she got the opportunity to, like, they took their time with her coming to terms with not being part of the hive mind anymore, to being an individual. So what did you think of speaking strictly of Voyager, what did you think of the way that they dealt with her storyline?
She was the only one that had a storyline development, except for the Doctor a little bit, but even then not terribly much. She was literally the only character that had character development on the show, whereas DS9, all the characters had character development. It was very strange.
You don't think that any of the other characters, I mean, maybe not in the same way, but had any development?
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, I think Tess did. We just didn't get to see the whole arc.
Yeah.
A little with Tom and B'Elanna as Tom became less the little, he was always a lovable rogue and became the responsible married guy ultimately. But nothing on and the Doctor, like Veronica said, but nothing really like on the level of 7, because she literally went from, I found it very interesting. I've read a lot of stuff online that Janeway might have done her wrong by taking her away from where she wanted to be, which that's a whole conversation you could have. But they did a lot with that. Like you said, I remember every Borg who they've ever taken away, the first thing they say is the voices are gone. And they freak out. The voices are gone because they hear voices all the time. And she was incredibly lonely and she was afraid. I'll give Jerry Ryan credit. She acted that fear out the first time she couldn't hear the voices anymore. Remember, she was simultaneously threatening and begging Janeway to let her go back to the collective. It's quite an emotional scene when she's doing that. Yeah. That is really good. And then they grew in a lot of ways. Like I remember the first time she saw Neelix and she basically pointed out his species number. Mm-hmm.
We assimilated 37 of you. Yeah.
He's kind of like, okay.
We assimilated y'all's asses.
Yes. She definitely grew in her manners because boy, oh boy, she was frank to the point of being incredibly rude.
All right. So I want to talk about some of Seven's relationships, because this whole thing is about coming out of the hive mind and becoming an individual. And part of that is forming these relationships with other individuals. And that's a very new experience for her. And while every one of the relationships with the other characters on the show is unique, there's 3 that I think stand out and that I want to talk about. The first one is the Janeway and Seven relationship. And I'm not talking about the behind the scenes. I'm talking just on screen. I felt like the addition, no matter what Kate Mulgrew felt, I thought that the addition of Seven gave a whole new definition it gave a new purpose, a new drive to the Janeway character. And I feel like she had this personal investment, and she had this sort of mother-daughter relationship with Seven, or teacher or student, And I feel like both of those characters kind of were affected by each other. So what do you think about the relationship between Seven and Janeway when it first started and how it developed over those 3 or 4 seasons? Holly, what do you think?
I think it really allowed Janeway to be more vulnerable, but not necessarily on the bridge or in public, because there's so many moments between Janeway and Seven where Janeway is trying to explain a really complex emotional thought or situation to Seven, and you get a little behind the scenes of how Janeway ticks in a way that you don't get with her conversations, even with Chakotay most of the time. And that vulnerability, we don't get it. I feel like we don't get with Janeway more than we don't get it with other captains, because she was the first female captain. She's not allowed to appear weak, all of those ideas we put on women in leadership. So I think that was my favorite part of Seven showing up, is that it allowed Janeway to be a more complete character.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Holly, what you're saying is a very interesting thing, which is we're in a time now where if you say certain things like motherly or sometimes you get attacked for that because it sounds wrong. And this whole male-female gender dynamic. And I think Kate Mulgrew did a really good job of showing what I would call a feminine side. Please don't write us bad letters, folks. Of showing a feminine side, but still being a strong captain. Because I remember, again, there were times when, and a couple of times when, like the time Seven tried to go back to the collective. There were many times where she almost reminded me like a mother tucking her child in. Because Seven was in the alcove and she turned the lights out and she was still lonely and she was still afraid. And Janeway would be very tender when she would just kind of say good night. And of course, Seven couldn't say thank you or whatever, but it reminds me of way back when I was a kid and my mom would put me to bed and turn out the light. And I thought that did show another side of Mulgrew, tough as nails, but also had a really caring nature. And I think that Kate Mulgrew she walked that path very well between being a tough starship captain and a caring starship captain at the same time.
Yeah. So that brings up another point. And so, Veronica, you can answer this one first if you want. Would this have worked with another captain? If this trick had worked with or had been paired up with Picard or with Cisco,
no.
you don't think so?
Cisco, 90% no.
Pike, yes.
Yes, Pike would have been yes.
Yeah.
But Kirk, I'd say probably 70% no. Mainly because he hasn't met the Borg, so he doesn't understand it.
Well, true. But he would also have just delegated it to somebody else.
Yes.
Pike
would,
McCoy,
but yeah,
you
Pike,
deal with
like
this.
Polly said, Pike would have gotten involved, and even if he didn't understand it, because this has not happened yet, he would like dive in and make sure they're okay and constantly checking in, and that's the kind of captain he is. Cisco would have been like, all right, take care of it. And Picard would have just flipped out.
Flipped out. In his very stoic British sort of way, he would have.
Archer would have taken 2 seasons and then he would have been all in. But it would have taken him a while.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked as well with any of the other captains we had up to that point. Maybe later on, Michael Burnham. But before that, I don't think any of the others. You don't think she would?
Did you see what she did when the Klingons came along?
I think of the later Michael Burnham. That was
season
really
5,
cool.
Michael Burnham.
Yeah.
Okay, so season 5, Michael Burnham. Yes, she would have absolutely accepted her, no problem. Season 1, Michael Burnham.
Maybe
Season
not.
2, Michael Burnham. No.
The whole game we could play. The season 1 captain would have thrown him out the airlock. The season 2 would have tucked it in. So.
Right.
But no, I agree with Veronica. It wouldn't have worked as well with, and not just because it's a female actor. It's because Kate Mulgrew is so good at how she played. I mean, she really played that. She's so good at it. Amazingly good at it, as a matter of fact.
So if they had done this kind of storyline with one of the other captains, would it have been a male Borg? Like, would it have been different if it was Picard and Hugh, for instance?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so, because I think also the closeness the captain might have been, some people might have been a little weird with a man and a woman back in the day. I could see that being a little issue. I also think one of the ways, even though she didn't like Jerry Lyon to a certain extent personally, I think one of the things Kate Mulgrew brought to that role is, I don't know if you know her backstory, but she gave up her daughter for adoption.
Yeah.
When her daughter was very, very young. And ironically, Kate Mulgrew first came to fame on Ryan's Hope. And she played a character who on the show had to give up her daughter for adoption. She talked about how that stayed with her in her entire life. She felt that underlying guilt. She finally found her daughter and they've gotten together. But I can't think that wasn't part of how she treated Seven, how her character kind of mothered 7 and 9, because she had that real life experience to draw on.
That's a really good point.
And it shows.
Yeah. Another captain that we didn't think of, Jared Cooper, says Captain Shaw would not have allowed her on the bridge.
Get that right.
No. No.
Okay, so one of the other, I think, key relationships with Seven is the Doctor. And Seven, Seven becomes sort of that outside observer kind of character, like Spock or Data or Odo, that character that like observes and is bemused by humanity or confused by humanity, comments on it, learns from it. But when Voyager started, we had the Doctor in that role. Right. And at this point, the Doctor sort of takes on a mentor role. Particularly in seasons 6 and 7, the Doctor becomes sort of a mentor for Seven. How do you think that shaped the Doctor's character as much as it shaped Seven's character?
A ton. A lot. Like, that was like his big mentor thing, and that's probably why they had him on Prodigy. That's why he's involved in Academy, because he is that mentor character.
That's a great point. I had not thought of the connection between that and those other two shows. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Which is why it hits so hard in Academy, where he's like, I am not a mentor. I'm nobody's mentor. I'm like, what happened? I need to know what happened.
Yeah.
What happened with Wendala? Like, that is still haunting me. They mentioned it and then they never followed up. And now the show's been canceled. So if it's not in season 2, I have a lot of feelings. I apologize. But in terms of the Doctor, I think, if you watch a season 1 episode and then a season 7 episode, like it's a completely different character in a lot of different ways. And I think part of it is because Seven shows up and does start to kind of play that Data, Odo, Spock role. But I think that lets the Doctor loosen up a little bit, because the Doctor's arc has always been trying to, get closer and closer to his humanity in spite of being photonic. And so when you have another stiff character there, it allows the formerly stiff character to loosen up a bit. And I think he ends up, he finally truly understands the concept of love because of her. Like, she, by her presence, opens up emotional experiences that he's never had before. So she makes him a more complex being simply by being in a relationship with him, a mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah.
It's almost funny, or it is funny to me at first, when he was her, as Q said about Data, he was her professor of the humanities, because he hasn't been all that long sentient himself. Yeah. And so it's almost hilarious for him to teach her and school her in the ways of being a human when he's actually still trying to learn himself.
Dating. He teaches her how to date. Has he dated on the holodeck behind our back?
Right, exactly. See? And
but he's read Hollow novels, and that's the important part.
Right.
He had
Same
that one
thing.
family for like an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Picardo is so good at playing, he's never going to meet a challenge that he doesn't think he can handle, because he's, like you said, Holly, he's incredibly arrogant about teaching her how to be a living being, even though he's not much older than she is technically. But Picardo is so good at it. I agree. I think it does allow her to become more human. The whole thing about him falling in love with her was interesting. I guess it makes sense that he did. I kind of agree with you, Veronica. Although when he confessed it, it was hilarious. I will say it's one of the funniest moments in the series. But I do love the fact that she made him more human, because he had to teach her how to be human. And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
And the big difference too is that his love didn't get creepy like Alexis did. Like, he had the moment, he realized it's not the right moment and this is not the appropriate situation, and he dealt with it himself. Like, he didn't put that on her, and I think that's really good.
Yeah.
But if you remember, there was another sort of romance, another sort of interest going on there, and that was Seven and Chakotay.
Oh boy.
Which Jared says Seven and Rafi is a much better and more believable relationship than Seven and Chakotay. Absolutely. And I have a number of theories about that. But that whole Chakotay situation was never believable.
No, right up there with Deanna and Worf.
Deanna, exactly right.
I buy
Exactly.
Deanna and Worf far more, though.
Oh,
I agree.
far more.
I agree.
Far more.
Because they have an established relationship of mutual respect and trust.
I mean, Worf's been trying to make her be baby mama to Alexander for like 5 seasons at that point. So, like, the path has been laid down.
I always thought Seven and Nine's romantic side and her sexual side was always problematic, because while she was obviously in the body of a mature woman, technically, how old was her mind actually? She was assimilated when she was a child. Yeah. So she didn't really have the mind of a full-grown woman. So the one thing Holly, you're talking about creepy stuff. I'm so glad they dropped that weirdness where Harry Kim was sexually attracted to her and he was always stumbling around her. I'm so glad they got rid of that.
That's just him being the little puppy dog that has eyes for everything that walks by.
Yeah. He should have gone with the Delaney sisters. One of the Delaney sisters. But
both of them?
Yeah, well, there you go.
It's the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's Gene Roddenberry's product. They knew he was involved with that one. Yeah, it was always a little weird, like with Kes, because technically, mentally, socially, she was a child or a young teenager, even though her body was fully mature. So they had to walk real carefully with the whole thing of relationships and sexual relationships with her, because she was not mature yet. And she looked it, she acted it, but inside, nah.
I haven't watched it in a very, very long time, but a scene that sticks out to me is when she and Chakotay were going to be having a date, I think, and she was going to be preparing a meal, and she tells him to cut the carrots at this very specific, like incremental, and I thought that was just the funniest little thing. It was such a cute moment.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
And it also didn't work because what you guys are saying, it also didn't work because Robert Beltran had never really been allowed to grow as a character outside of anything. So just throwing him in that weird romance with her was weird.
They were like, let's find something for him to do, you know?
Yeah. I'm sure Robert hated it too. You know, if you're going to do that, they could have had him and Janeway explore that strange, well, not strange, the tension they had. That would have been more believable.
They had dangled that carrot for seasons, and then it went nowhere.
They dangled it again in Prodigy. What are you talking about?
Well, okay.
That's true. Yeah.
Because Seven was out of the picture, so he's like, well, I may as well try it again with Janeway.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about Seven romance, what I didn't like, personal, subjective opinion, I didn't like the Unimatrix Zero romance that they came up with later on. Sorry, Holly. By that time, this
wounded Holly.
This is keeping off this perspective. By that time, the Borg storylines were getting really old with me. So the Unimatrix Zero was a little old. I was like, oh God, not again now. Because the more they did that, the more they made her story more horrific. Because even though she was enslaved, she still had an outlet, and I was much more into them as just complete controlled zombie-like.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know that they ever really got a relationship. Was there ever a relationship with Seven that we did like? I can't remember. Was it like a one-episode one that we liked? I can't remember.
I mean, when she goes on her fake hologram first date and it's with another crewman and then almost breaks his arm dancing. Like, that's my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Seven moment of all time is that date with the lobster tail, and she squirts it all over his face. And then she can't dance. Ugh.
And I think the writers there is nothing more difficult in writing than that will they won't they storyline.
Oh yeah.
And I think even if they were going to mess around with the stuff with Chakotay, I really hate that they then said, oh, we're going to have she's got an emotional blocker thing on her, and she may die if her emotions. It started getting really silly to me at that point. I thought that was a silly thing to throw in there. It didn't work for me.
Yeah. All right, one more relationship that I really want to talk about, and that is in the last couple of seasons, and that is this, and it's one of my favorite things Voyager ever did, that relationship between Seven and Naomi Wild.
Yes.
Wildman,
that was great.
I loved that so much.
Me too.
What did you think about that, and what do you think was the attraction there for Naomi? Why did she connect so much with Seven?
because she acted more like she was her age, but she was striving for perfection, and in Naomi's eyes, she could achieve perfection. So it was like, this is someone basically my age, and they're still learning things, but they're perfect, so I want to be like them.
It's part of becoming the assistant captain, right?
Yeah.
Is achieving that perfection. And yeah, I want to bounce off what you just said, Veronica, because I think it's about emotional maturity. You know, Annika was taken around the same age Naomi presents in those last few seasons, and Seven's on her journey to understand emotions and cope and grapple with them. And Naomi is a very emotionally mature kid. Let's be very honest about that. Like,
yeah.
And so I think it's sometimes Naomi teaches Seven how to human, insofar as like finding the fun and not being so serious all the time. And I love that, because, you know, so often kids are not presented as people you can learn from. Like, kids learn from adults. And I like that Naomi is a role model for Seven, even if Seven doesn't necessarily see her in that way.
Right. And interestingly, Naomi's father's race, they mature quickly as children, because remember, she grew from infancy to whatever really quickly. I will say now, one joke I never got tired of is every single time when Naomi came around the corner, she would go, Naomi Wildman. Every time she greeted her. And I just loved it. And remember when Naomi was stalking her, because she was kind of scared of her, but she was fascinated about her. I'll never forget when she said, Naomi Wildman, subunit of Samantha Wildman. State your purpose. That is so funny. I mean, that's good.
That.
She's hilarious. I think the relationship they were getting a good relationship.
Yeah. I loved Naomi anyway. I thought she was such a really great addition to the cast. And that unique relationship that brought these new sides out of Seven, I thought was really wonderful. Bill says Naomi Wildman was the little girl, right? That is absolutely right. I'm sure you picked that up as we talked about it, but yes. And then Jarl Thunder says the main downside is that the tension is the whole engine. So once you resolve it, you often kill the thing people were tuning in for.
Yeah,
I disagree on that.
Okay.
Because there is plenty of people who, after you stretch out the will they want, you want to see them happy for a while.
Right.
Just saying.
Right.
Yeah. I watch a lot of K-dramas. I want that last episode where they're happy and together, and then I can pretend the first 15 episodes where they were like, oh, did not happen. Resolution, and being able to see the resolution, and it's not just resolution, black screen. I want to see the resolution, and you can stretch that out, because they can have little issues like any relationship has, but they don't do that.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. He also says Moonlighting and Cheers disagree. Right. Those two shows absolutely did make bank on dragging that out. You are absolutely correct.
Who's the boss?
Yeah.
Brilliantly.
That's
as well.
true.
That's true.
I think the other thing about Naomi, even though she was a mature child, she was still a child, and she was sometimes afraid, and she would look to Seven, who on the surface had no fear. And so she was this incredible role model for Naomi on the other side. And Naomi often found comfort in study and science, you know, so she gave her structure. The actress who played her mother, Samantha Wildman, people have often said, why was Samantha Wildman not around to take care of her own kid? I forget her name, but the actress herself was on Broadway and stuff a lot. So she was gone a lot. So they couldn't write her in as much as
she was a deadbeat mom.
yeah, she wasn't a war character or anything like that. So that's why,
I choose career over my children. Anyway.
And it was also a nice transition from Neelix, who kind of treated Naomi like a child. There was a whole episode where she was like, Neelix, I'm not a child anymore. The hand off to Seven. And I thought that actually worked in a lot of ways.
So the common theme there is that Neelix always treats women the wrong way. Sorry, Neelix.
Yeah. Neelix needed to be needed a little bit too much. And
that's true.
That was the deal with him.
Anyway, we've got to talk about Picard. But before we do, I just want to say, when Voyager, one of the things that I wish we had gotten more of, and I don't know how we could have other than in novels or whatever, but when Voyager comes back to Earth, we never see how the crew is received. We never see the way that Seven particularly finds a way into Earth society. And you know, she has come out of her Borg shell, and she's learned to be an individual and all that kind of stuff, but only within this very closed environment. What happens when she is let loose into an entire planet of people? I think that would have been a fascinating story to see.
I agree. If you ever listed all the regrets and things you wish you could have seen in the entire Star Trek 60-year franchise, Voyager not giving us a coming home movie is near the top of my list, because Janeway saying we made it was nice, but that was it. And I'm like you, because we now know with Picard, she did not adjust well, because she's out there basically being like a Robin Hood type character or a vigilante. The Rangers, what was it she was? I forget the
Fenris
name.
Ranger.
Yeah. So she obviously didn't adjust very well, and I wish we could have seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite shows of all time is a British show called Tenko, and it's about a group of British and Dutch women who are in POW camps during World War II. They're in Japanese prison camps. And the whole third season is about the camps being liberated and them coming back into British society and having to fit into society after having these horrific experiences, and how it changes you, how you, like, there's one woman who was kind of like upper crust, and she was expected to just step right back into high society, and she's like, but I've got all this trauma. What do I do with all this trauma? And it was amazing. I wish we had gotten something like that with Voyager. Where you see the coming home, you see them reintegrating into family and societal structures. I just think that would have been such great storytelling.
I have a movie title.
Okay.
Okay. Star Trek Coming Home. Like the Spider-Man.
Like Spider-Man.
No Way Home.
Home. I think you make a very good point.
See you, Keith. He'll be back. But I want to really quickly, we've got to jump into Picard, because when Picard starts and Seven comes in, we see her as a very different version of herself. And we know a lot of time has passed, and we don't get to see a lot of all that. We're told some of the things that have transpired over those 20 something years, but we don't actually get to see it. So we know a little of what happened to her in the years between the shows. Would you have wanted to have seen more? And do you think that the starting point we got in Picard was a believable one from what we 100%. Saw where she left off in Voyager?
Yes.
I wanted to see more, but I thought where they started was good, and I feel like they gave not as much as I would preferred, but enough of the backstory.
Yeah. Enough to tell you what the journey was like, but not enough to show it. Yeah.
Right, because when you and Holly were painting, Alan, is what I was going to say. I lost my network connection. There have been several characters in Star Trek, like Dax in 7 of 9, whose representation has grown over the years. We discuss these things more. She is an absolute kidnapping victim. She's an abductee.
Yeah.
And so much more of that psychology is being examined as we talk about feelings more. Because not only was she not comfortable with just being on anything but a small ship, but she goes back to a society that hate and fear the Borg. It doesn't matter. You can tell people all day long she's one of the good ones, and I'm saying that intentionally. Who's going to trust her? Honestly, ultimately.
Totally.
And heck, and let's be honest, with the Borg, you never know. They don't have some stupid nano programming in the back of them that's going to turn on in 50 years. You never know with the Borg, truthfully.
Exactly. She's a literal sleeper agent, or at least has the potential to be, and that's what people will think about her.
All the time. Alan, you also mentioned, or you and Holly mentioned about her not going back to Earth. One of the episodes I love, I forget which one it was. Remember there was an episode they were talking about going to Earth, and Seven literally is like, I don't care. I don't want to go to Earth. And nothing about it. Seeing the beautiful blue orb that is the planet that we all react to. She's like, whatever. No feelings for it at all. Yeah. And I found that was sad. And if I can say real quickly, her parents beat out Worf as the worst parent in the Star Trek franchise.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Seriously? Seriously? Yes. Who does that?
Psychos. Sorry.
Psychos.
People with massive egos that think that they're invisible. Yeah.
What did they expect?
Seriously. I really think it's a perfect progression for Seven from where we last saw her, because she's really like those last couple episodes of Voyager. She's very much like she gets that thing turned off in her head that lets her feel emotions and all that stuff. Like they set her on the path, and I think her being kind of this independent Lone Ranger sort of character also really makes sense, because Seven has a very strong justice streak through her. Yeah. And she also prefers to complete tasks alone and doesn't like anybody telling her what to do. So like in that regard, protecting innocent people and doing it on her own terms makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, like I think we're really struck in that first episode where she shows up because she's in civvies, right? Like she's in human dressed down, like she's not in a uniform, she's not in a cat suit. And her posture and her physicality is different, but I think it's because she's done 25 years of work to figure out who she is, and she's just truly comfortable in her own skin in a way we never saw her in even in the last season of Voyager. So like, I'd have loved to seen that path. And I think that there are some comic books or some novels that somebody needs to write, but it all works for me in terms of a linear progression.
Our buddy Jarl Thunder says, I thought it made perfect sense for the evolution of her character coming into Picard, protecting others in a way that she wasn't protected. Yes. And that's a very good point. That's really good.
Yeah.
All right.
I think too, her progression makes sense, the way they showed her Picard. Fitting in completely.
Yeah. So what do you think about when adding her to the Picard cast? Like, I don't know that would be the first character I would have thought of to bring into Picard, and I think it's such an interesting choice, and it was so unexpected, and it was so great to see Jerry back in the role again.
Yeah.
And she's still got the prosthetics, but she doesn't have to wear her hair in a bun, and she's obviously not being put in the cat suit and things like that.
Right.
But I thought it was such an interesting choice to bring that character into Picard.
I thought it was perfect because she was prior Borg like Picard was, and they also had Hugh in the first season at least, and he had just as much as an impactful role as she did in the first season. Right. There would have been more of him, but I feel like because she was the only other humified Borg at the time during the run of the series in the 90s.
But you would have thought that it would have been Hugh, because
he was there.
But he was there, but he wasn't in cast. He wasn't a main character, and he does have that connection to Picard. I
felt like he got just as much screen time and whatnot as Seven.
Okay.
In the first season.
Okay.
But it's kind of like they cut out what's her face after the first season as well, even though like she was the main character along with Picard, and I'm not even remembering her name now because it's been so long.
So the lady who was his love,
the twin girl, the other synth.
Oh, Sochi or Soji or
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she's going off on adventures with Will Wheaton. It's fine. Pay no attention.
That's a trade up as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Prodigy.
I think Jerry Ryan did a good job in Picard, despite the fact that I find the first two seasons of Picard, the first one is okay. The second one is unbelievable to me. The third one is better, but I think despite that, Jerry Ryan added something, especially her relationship with Raffi. And of course, Patrick Stewart is so good for people to bounce off of, because they never interacted before now. Like you said, they have so much in common, having been turned into Borg. And even though he wasn't a Borg for a long time, look at what he did. Thousands of people killed when he was taken over.
I feel like that's why 7 of 9 was more important than Hugh, because he had an existing relationship with Hugh, but he did not have that with 7. He had it to a little bit clearly, because there's clearly they had some interaction prior to that, but not significantly as it was with Hugh, which I thought was more impactful.
Yes. Yeah. So we've only got a few minutes left, but since Jared brought it up earlier, I want to talk about the relationship between Seven and Raffi. I thought that was such an interesting twist, and I did not see it coming, and I thought it was really, really cool. And that's another one of those, like we were talking about the relationships that she formed on Voyager. This is another new one for her. And it was interesting for her to get another like set of new experiences with this. And so what did you think about that pairing?
I was surprised because I didn't see it, but after having gone at first, but after having gone back and watched it again, you can see hints of that. Just like you didn't expect the Dax and Worf thing at first either, but when you go back, you're like, oh yeah, the signs are there.
Yeah, nice hat. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I regret not seeing, like, so much of their relationship happened off camera.
Right.
Like, I'd rather see
Yeah.
that than see what happened to Seven between Voyager and Picard.
Okay.
Like, just because we, it's another form of representation that we're starting to get in modern Trek more and more and more. But Picard and Discovery, we're the first two to really have strong same-sex relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish we had gotten more of that, because it's important for everybody to see themselves in Star Trek. So,
Yeah.
but I liked it. I think it was interesting that, in some ways, Seven was the grounding character in that relationship oftentimes, instead of being the one being taught how to be in a relationship. So it really shows how much Seven has grown, that she can be that kind of partner to somebody.
Right. And I think we saw the beginning of that with Naomi, because just like the Doctor had started out being the other character and then becomes the mentor to Seven, Seven comes in as the other and then takes on that mentor role for Naomi. So we kind of see how that began. And I do think that's a really, really great continuation of that. Our buddy Jarl Thunder says, Terry Matalas understood the characters and how they could fit into a good story. I totally agree with that. And, if there is going to be a changeover in the Trek kingdom, I would not mind Terry Matalas taking a lead role in that.
yeah, agree.
Yes, please.
I find it interesting. No one mentioned, when we talked about Seven growing as a human and a mentor, nobody mentioned what I call the baby Borg, because it's really more Naomi than
the baby Borg.
I kind of like them.
That's true.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that,
because she dealt with a lot with them. The whole thing with Ichib, the time when they found out his parents were bastards. Excuse my language. But I found it interesting in that episode. She was treating his parents. She was incredibly rude because she didn't want to lose him, and they were primitive compared to the technology she was used to. I thought that was very interesting, and I do love the way she kind of mentored the kids, like when she was, she was teaching. Because at first, like Holly, you said, one of my favorite lines from the entire show is literally when that time she was telling them, like, 5 a.m. get up, 6 a.m. whatever, 7 a.m. fun, and she programmed it. And then she learned, like, no, they're not little Borg units. You can't treat them like that. So I thought they helped, perhaps not as much as Naomi, but they did kind of help her on that path of being a human.
Watching it in the order I did, I met Icheb first in Picard. So that scene was really meaningful and all, because Jerry Ryan acts the crap out of it. But, like, I didn't know that was a legacy character. But even so, I'm watching Ryan interact with this guy. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I would die for this guy, like, just based on her interaction. And then when I get to that part in Voyager, I'm like, oh my God, no,
it's him.
I love origin stories. Those are my favorite trope in TV shows, is when you're part of the way through a show and then you get the origin story of how everybody met. So, like, watching it in that order, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So, yeah, I love the kids.
Friends did that really well.
Yes. How I Met Your Mother did it really well.
Yes.
Community probably did it the best.
Yes. Okay, so we are at time.
Wow.
Holly, thank you so much for joining us for this. We will definitely have you back.
Thank you for
especially
having me.
After Strange New Worlds, when we get an opportunity to do our religion in Star Trek episode.
Yes, please.
We will definitely have you back for that.
Definitely.
So why don't you tell people where they can find more of you if you would like for them to find more of you? You might not want to.
Absolutely. So my YouTube channel is called Along Road Productions, and that is at Along Road PROD because somebody else had the full one and I had to shorten it. And if you're interested, I've got short form and long form lectures over there deep diving into religion, politics, and Star Trek. So I've got a video on Star Trek V and how it's an inherently Jewish film, and religious traditions and Star Trek prodigy. So if you're interested in any of that, please head over to YouTube and find my stuff.
Sweet. All right, Keithy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And Veronica.
feltnerdy.com. And you can find us across social media at Felt Nerdy. We will be at DragonCon doing 3 all ages shows, 1 adult Star Trek show, and the late night puppet slam plus the national puppet slam.
Yes.
So DragonCon is going to be very busy, and I'm excited to officially announce that our adult show, adult Star Trek show, will be back at DragonCon. We had to shift it back later, and I'm very excited about the room we're potentially in. I'm very, very excited because potentially it's not the track room.
Ooh,
wow.
Amazing.
So I'm very excited about that, but it's a lot. And also Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yay. I should tell you that I had a department meeting at work a week or 2 ago, and a lady from another department was in our meeting, and she came in wearing a National Puppet Slam t-shirt. And I'm like, why are you wearing that shirt? Are you a puppet, interest? She's like, oh yeah. She told me all about the Puppet Slam, and I'm like, let me tell you about my 2 best friends who are in the Puppet Slam this year. And she was very excited.
Yay.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
And how about you, Alan?
Well, you can find me at cosmiccreative.com, and that's spelled with a K and the Z. And if you go there, you can find the books that I've written and the film that I'm working on and the podcast that I do and all kinds of stuff. Next week, I'm so excited about next week. We're going to be doing some more Voyager talk because we are going to be doing the second part of our Barclay discussion. And we got through all of his TNG episodes on the first time we did this topic. And so now we really got to take care of the Voyager appearances that he did, which I think, well, we'll talk about this a lot next week, but I think they're maybe even more significant than the TNG episodes. So I can't wait to get into that. And then after that, that's on 7/16. 2 weeks from tonight, 7/23, we have the premiere of Strange New Worlds season 4.
Wow, that's
so
right. Yeah.
So excited. I can't wait to do that. That's going to be so much fun. All right. So everybody join us again next Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about Reginald Barclay. Everybody take care. Have a great week and keep trekking on.
Thanks.